Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to talk about Google giving government spy tools. We're going to talk about the September Apple event announcements. We're going to be talking about EU copyright law. What a bunch of fun, and a whole lot more. So go ahead and stick around. Pew, 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 pew. Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome back to episode 136 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is what I says. Like always, down below, there's timestamps. You can skip to whatever you want to hear me discuss, but if you got the time, I'd suggest listening to the entire episode. If you do want to find out more about these episodes, see the show notes, find the video, or find the audio, you can find it all at bandrewsays.com, and there is subscription links and direct links to pretty much every platform that it's available on. That's what I'm trying to say. So go check that out, bandrewsays.com. One personal thing up top, and it is self-plug awesomeness. So this last week, I dropped the latest episode of Creator Case Study with Josh Pasner or Jim Pestner, John Prosser, that's it. But he was an incredibly gracious guest with the information he provided. There is so much information about starting a YouTube channel, growing a channel, maintaining a YouTube channel, understanding the algorithm, understanding your audience, and gaining respect from your audience and showing value to your audience. There is an insane amount of information in there, so much so that I broke it into 2 episodes that came out back to back, day after day, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you do want to find that out, you can just search Creator Case Study on whatever podcast app you listen on, or you can find the video at creatorcasestudy.com. So let's jump into the news. And the first thing is absolutely terrifying. It is that Google is going to be tying searches to phone numbers and providing that query data to the government. Now, I know a lot of you, if you're like me, are thinking about this and freaking out, man. You are freaking out, man. And it is only in China right now, according to this. And this project is called Dragonfly. And I will go ahead and link the article that I am referencing here. And it is from intercept.com or theintercept.com. But essentially what this Dragonfly thing is, it's a new search engine for Android devices, which allows the government to blacklist certain terms. So it gives the government censorship capabilities, and it also will track your query history and tie that to your phone number. And that will be searchable by the government. So the government can say, oh, what has Jim Norton been searching? If you know anything about Jim Norton, it's going to be some filthy stuff. But on the other hand, maybe they will be able to type in, hey, who was searching for this political event? And it will bring back every phone number that searched that. And then I am sure they will be able to search backwards and say, oh, who owns this phone number? And track you down, and maybe stomp out any kind of dissident ideas that you have. They don't want you questioning their authority. So that is what's going on here. And last week, 16 lawmakers wrote to Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google, demanding information on the company's China plan. But apparently, there hasn't been any response from Sundar Pichai or anybody at Google, to my understanding. But there have been multiple Google employees who have left or resigned because of this project. There's one employee, Jack Polson, or ex-employee Jack Polson, who stated, I view our intent to capitulate to censorship and surveillance demands in exchange for access to the Chinese market as a forfeiture of our value and governmental negotiating position across the globe. Wow. That is a good way to put it. But you know what? Let's just go ahead and head over to a certain corner that I like to frequent. Welcome to the Conspiracy Corner. So why am I bringing this entire story up? A lot of you may be thinking, I don't live in China. I don't care. But let me ask you this. What was the argument for not allowing Apple to develop backdoors? First up, it was saying, well, if you create a backdoor, somebody could steal the keys and exploit that backdoor. But the other one was, well, if you make this backdoor, if you make this exception here, then who's to say other governments won't hold you hostage and say, hey, you know what, we're not going to allow you to sell your phones in our market unless you give us that same preferential treatment and allow us access to people's encrypted data. And that is a very slippery slope. So by Apple saying, you know what, we're not going to go ahead and give you access, that is a very good precedent to set, even though it may hinder somebody's investigation or law enforcement's investigation in the US. I think that was the right choice. But if Google has developed a way to track all searches, tie them to an individual's phone number, and allow the government to query that database, do you not think that other governments besides China will realize the value that there is in that to stomp out any kind of dissenting ideas or people who may be thinking, oh, the government's not doing as well as I would like. I don't like this politician. I don't like that politician. This tool would be so easy to abuse and provide people in power so much more power. You want to have checks and balances to limit somebody's ability to limit free speech, to have differing ideas, to challenge ideas that are being put out there. You don't want the people in power to be able to determine who doesn't like what they're doing. It is a very dangerous environment that you would be entering into if this does get rolled out and implemented, because every other government will see the value there and start to think, I want that power too. I want that power too, because I don't want to leave office. I like having this amount of power. Very dangerous thing going on there. But this is all assuming that this hasn't already been rolled out everywhere. I will just end it by saying this. The Purism Librem 5 cannot come soon enough. If you don't know what that is a phone that was crowdfunded. It is running on a Linux distro. It has hardware switches to kill the antennas on it, so you can't be tracked if you turn all the antennas off, and it actually severs the circuitry. So it can't just be, you can't be hacked and have somebody turn that back on because it's a hardware switch on the phone. Somebody would have to actively get their hands on your phone and flip it back on. So I'm going to end the conspiracy corner there. Let's get out of here. It's getting a little bit creepy and musky in here, and I think I hear Alex Jones coming. We don't want to talk to him. All right, so that is it for that Google news. Let's jump to the Apple September 2018 event. So what was announced? 3 new iPhones and an Apple Watch. I don't know why I stumbled over those words. So let's talk about the 2 main, what would they be called? Flagship phones. The iPhone XS and the XS Max, or the XS and the XS Max, which are surprisingly fitting descriptions for how much they cost. So the phones will cost $1,000 or $1,100 respectively, and that is the baseline model. The XS Max goes up to $1,450 before tax and before, what is it called? Apple insurance? I can't remember what it's called right now. I'm drawing a blank. But what is the change to these phones? The XS is the same form factor as the 10, so it has a 5.8-inch OLED display, but it does have an improved waterproof rating. It has the new A12 Bionic chip, and it also has improved cameras, which is a 7-megapixel front-facing camera for selfies and a 12 megapixel rear-facing camera if you're into that stuff. Now, the new cameras do allow you to adjust the aperture after you've taken the photo, which is really cool. And if you don't know what changing the aperture means, that will adjust the depth of field. I don't think it actually changes the brightness, so it's not actually changing the f-stop. It's mainly just adjusting how much blurriness in the background there is. So it's not actually adjusting the f-stop. It's only changing the depth of field, but they show that in f-stop. So kind of misleading there, but really cool. And I do want to point this out. If I'm not mistaken, and there has been an Android phone in the past that has had this feature, and the reason I'm pointing that out, because I know there will be somebody raging in the comments, Android did this first! Android did this first! It's not cool! iPhone's second to the party! I know that will happen. So, I know Android did it first. Don't get your panties in a bunch. I'm fully aware. I don't know why I'm making you guys seem like crazy people. You're perfectly reasonable. But I don't know why. It just makes it more interesting for me to think of you as utterly insane people. The XS Max, exact same as the XS, but it has a 6.5-inch display. Now, in terms of battery life, the XS and the XS Max will have 30 minutes and 1 hour more battery life, respectively in comparison to the iPhone 10, and they also have dual SIM options. So if you want to have 2 phone numbers, 2 SIMs, 2 plans, you want to travel internationally, there you go, dual SIM options. I think the Chinese version will have the physical dual SIM, and I think there's only 9 countries that actually allow for the eSIM technology that's built in. So I'm assuming that there will be multiple countries, majority of countries that have the iPhone XS and the XS Max will have the physical SIM slot. Now, the iPhone XR, this starts at $750. It has a 6.1-inch LCD screen that is approximately 820p, so not full HD. What else does it have? It only has a single lens, which is 12 megapixel camera on the rear and a 7 megapixel front-facing camera. But since it only has the single lens on the rear, you won't have the ability to adjust the aperture or the depth of field because the second camera allows you to get that, what would it be called? The depth sensor. It doesn't have a depth sensor, the ability to sense depth. It also has thicker bezels because it is an LCD screen, and they could not curve the display like they did on the iPhone X. So they need to hide the screen controller somewhere. So I think they had to add a thicker bezel at the bottom, and they just did it uniformly around to make it seem like it doesn't have a chin. That's pretty much it. As I said, $750. But what I want to talk about the most is the Apple Watch Series 4. This was the most exciting announcement at this event for me. It has a larger screen with smaller bezels in comparison to the Series 3, and it is also slightly thinner. I don't think they mentioned how much thinner it is, but it is a little bit thinner than the Series 3. The crown will have haptic feedback, so when you're spinning it around, it will actually click as though it were a mechanical wheel. They changed the body to improve cellular connection, so it's a little bit more transparent. It doesn't block as much of the cell signal, so you will have a better connection if you get the cellular version. They doubled the processor speed. This is the new S4 chip, I believe, which is very welcome and very nice to see. But here's where it gets really cool. They have an improved gyroscope, which will allow them to detect falls. And when they detect a fall, it will prepare your phone to call emergency services or contact your emergency contact. Now, it gives you 1 minute to cancel this. So if you're fine, you can just cancel it. It's not going to call anybody. But if it remains on the screen for 1 minute, maybe you fall over, you hit your head, you get knocked out, it's going to call emergency services for you and contact your emergency contact, which is insanely valuable. Think of who will benefit from this. Elderly folks. You can send this to your family member who is getting older, maybe they live alone, and they won't take your advice on getting some help around the house. You can send this to them. That's amazing. That is such a cool feature, and I am very happy to see that. Now, going even further into the health-related stuff, which is the coolest stuff for the watch, in my opinion, they have a new feature which is going to detect a low heart rate or irregular heart rhythms, as well as take electrocardiograms, ECGs, or EKGs. How cool is that? This is the first over-the-counter device that will allow you to take EKGs. Now, the way it's working is really neat. They have a piece of glass on the back that has a electrode or it has a current in it. And in order to complete that circuit, with your other finger, you will touch the crown of the watch and it will create a current that goes up through your chest, through your heart, into the other arm, and back into the smartwatch. And that is giving you a much more detailed look at your heartbeat, at your heart rate, at the rhythm, at everything about that. And that has actually been approved by the FDA. How freaking cool is that? I think that is such a neat feature, and I'll admit it, I ordered one because I want to know how unhealthy my heart is. I want to take an ECG when I get that scary email at work that just stresses me out. Oh my God, my heart rate just jumped up 20 BPM and it's starting to skip beats. I want to know how unhealthy I am when I am at work freaking out, man. I want to know that. Now, the thing that's really cool about the Apple Watch is seeing the progression, because when they released Series 1, it was just stupid. It was not a useful device. I don't think Apple knew what it was or what it was good for. I don't think the customer knew what it was good for. Series 2, they started to really hone in on it. Series 3, they did start to figure out what it was, but here, you're really starting to get value out of it. It's not just some stupid device that does what your phone does, but worse. They're starting to add other features that are exclusive to the watch that actually have value and can provide you with life-saving information. That's where I think it's really cool. It is becoming a part of your day-to-day activity or your day-to-day wardrobe, I guess I should say, that can actually provide you with value. And that's where I think it's really neat. And that's why I'm excited to see what they continue to do with this. There's been speculation over the last few years that Apple's trying to get away to measure blood sugar levels. That would be huge if they can measure blood sugar levels with an Apple Watch. Imagine the market there. That would be amazing for their stock price, but also amazing for people with diabetes. That would be incredible if Apple is able to continue to develop with this level of success and get FDA approval and save lives, essentially. And I know some people are going to say, oh, you're being so hyperbolic. I don't care. Hey, you don't want one, don't buy one. We'll get into that in a second. I think that's about it. Oh, I should tell you how much it cost. $400 for the GPS version or $500 for the GPS plus cellular. And I think cellular is $10 a month if you want to add that. There you have it. So what was I hoping for at this event that we did not get? AirPods 2. Honestly, I think of all the tech that I've purchased over the last few years, the AirPods are the most used because I use them 8 hours a day about, 8 hours a day during the week. Now, are they the best sounding headphones? No, by no stretch of the imagination. They don't sound phenomenal. They don't sound like a pair of studio cans. You can't expect them to. They're completely wireless in-ear AirPods. They don't sound good, but they are insanely convenient. I will put one in my ear, listen to podcasts for 5 hours. Oh, it starts to beep because the battery's dying. Throw that in the case, pull out the other one, put it in my other ear, listen for the rest of the day, throw the other AirPod back in the case, throw it on the charger for an hour. I'm good to go. It is so insanely convenient. You don't got to go into your Bluetooth settings, nothing. Insanely useful. I was hoping for Series 2 as well as the charging case, the wireless charging case. That would be incredible, but we didn't get it. We didn't get it. Side note, I do think Sennheiser released some completely wireless earbuds. I would love to try them out because I imagine Sennheiser is going to make significantly better sounding earbuds than Apple does, but they are $300. I thought $150 was, or $160 was quite expensive, but it's Sennheiser. They charge so much for everything they do. Now, the second thing was there was no updates to the 12-inch MacBook or the Mac Mini or the iPad Pro lineup, which was rumored to possibly happen here. I'm guessing we're going to see an October event, which will announce these updates because Apple's going to want to get this stuff out before the holiday season because that's where they're going to make a ton of money. So there you have it. That is the updates that were announced. But let me wrap up with a point, because I had a lengthy discussion last night in the Podcastage Discord server with Sound Speeds and a gentleman by the name of Eric. Now, the thing that I want to say here is if you think Apple devices are overpriced, underpowered, just piles of garbage, here's my solution to you. Don't spend your money on it. Don't buy one. Problem solved. You don't have to worry about it. How amazing is that? Vote with your dollar. That's the best way to get your point across to companies. If you think something is overpriced, underpowered, and a piece of garbage, don't buy one. And then guess what? If enough people agree with your sentiment, the company will go out of business. It's a beautiful thing that works in the free market. We're not being forced to buy iPhones. You're not being forced to buy iPhones or Apple products because this is a free market. How amazing is that? Now, the reason that I am bringing this up is I've seen so many people ripping into folks who like iPhones or hate iPhones. It's just a dumb argument about, I love Android, I love iOS, I love Windows, I love macOS. Let me ask you this. Do you know how much impact on my life that the phone that you use has? None at all. How amazing is that? You can use whatever phone you deem worthy of your time and your money. You can use whatever operating system works best for you, and it has zero impact on my life. I see all these people raging on the internet in the comments section, and I think that's a real big waste of energy. Use what works best for you and move on with your day. Go create something that you think is valuable, that you think is fun. Arguing with people on the internet over operating systems and phone platforms is ridiculous. I don't think anybody's mind has ever been changed by being called an idiot because they spent their money on an iPhone or they prefer the more open Android. I don't think anybody's mind has ever been changed by that. You are wasting your energy. Use whatever works for you. So I'm not going to say that I was disappointed by this event. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I kept my expectations low, so I was perfectly fine with it. And that's because I realized that we don't need new phones every single year. My iPhone 10 is still working perfectly fine right now. I am sure it will still be working perfectly fine in 1 or 2 years from now as well, because I am not a power user. I am not doing 3D AR games, running around, doing run and gun stuff. I'm not filming feature-length films on my iPhone. So I don't personally think it's necessary to upgrade your phone every year or every 2 years. I know people who are still using an iPhone SE or an iPhone 5 or an iPhone 6, which are 4 or 5 years old, and they are still working perfectly fine once they replace the battery. Thanks a lot, Apple. I can admit when Apple was wrong, so I want to pose this question to you. What were you most excited about from the Apple event? Did you like the event? Did you hate it? Are you going to pick up the iPhone XR, the XS, the XS Max, or the Apple Watch Series 4? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. Now we got one piece of security news, and that would be Dr. Disrespect had his house shot at. This is terrifying. So if you don't know who Dr. Disrespect is, he is a video game streamer on Twitch. He plays first-person shooter games in a character, an 80s character, 2-time video game champion of the world, something like that. But this last week, someone shot at his house and broke his window, and he stopped the stream. Apparently, everybody was okay, which is what's most important. But the real reason that I wanted to bring this up, because there's no other news about this, is I just want to reiterate how important it is to be selective with what information you share online. It is so easy to find crazy people online who are willing to harm you because they're jealous of you or they think you're an idiot and they don't think you deserve what you have. There are a lot of crazy people out there, so I just want to reiterate how important it is to keep your personal information as safe and secure as possible, and don't share it with just anybody. Don't share it with most people, actually, because there are so many crazy people out there. And I'm going to end that story there. Now, let's go ahead and jump to EU passing a copyright directive. Now, there are 2 articles that are important in this directive, at least according to a bunch of different news outlets, and that would be Chapter 11 and Chapter 13. Now, I will go ahead and link a PDF of the entire directive if you want to read through it, but gosh dang it, it is dense. I tried reading the articles in this form, in this document, but it is so difficult to decipher what they're actually saying. So I will go ahead and share the analysis done by other people who are paid really well to do so. So Chapter 11, they are calling the link tax. And this interpretation is pulled from The Verge because, like I said, I don't understand the nonsense wording in this document. But this would give publishers the right to ask for paid licenses for sharing stories. Now, I'm guessing that this is going to be implemented because of situations like Wikipedia, where Google was providing a summary of the article on Wikipedia, and the traffic to Wikipedia decreased quite significantly because people said, oh, well, that was the information I was looking for on the Google search results, so they didn't go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia didn't get that traffic. They didn't get any donations from that person. So I'm guessing that's what really initialized the move to have this implemented. Now, something that's interesting is, would this new link tax mean that if someone in the EU did a show like me right now, that they would be required to pay licenses to publishers? In the law, in this new directive, it says individuals don't have to pay this. They are exempt. But at what point do you go from being an individual to a corporate entity? Is there a certain number of followers? Is there a certain threshold that you have to reach? Or can you just say, hey, I'm an individual, and just go ahead and share links and share stories and do all of that? What's the threshold? That's the issue with this chapter right here, because it is so vague. Then we got chapter 13, which is a much bigger deal, and this is what people have been referring to as the meme killer or something along those lines. And what this will do, or what this states, is platforms storing and giving access to large amounts of works and other subject matter uploaded by their users would be liable for copyright infringement committed by their users. So some people are speculating that this would lead to the requirement of an upload filter where before anything is allowed publicly, it would get run through a database or compared to a database of all the copyrighted material. And if there are any matches there, your video couldn't go public. You'd have to go ahead and request a review of that declined upload. That's what some people are speculating. But there is also people saying, no, that's not what's going to happen at all. It's going to be a lot more like the YouTube copyright system, the content matching system. And guess what? That's not a really reassuring statement to make, because guess what makes a lot of mistakes? The YouTube content matching system. The issue with all of this is these algorithms are completely unable to determine if it's fair use or not. There is a big issue with that with content matching. So if this rolls out, there could be some pretty serious issues. But let's briefly talk about what this entire copyright directive potentially means for content creators. And I wish I could give you an absolute answer, but this really is one of those we'll have to wait and see situations, because we don't know how this is going to be interpreted, because it is so vague and it can be interpreted in so many different ways. We don't know what new technology is going to be required or implemented. We don't know how this can be abused or how it will be abused. So we really don't know. For instance, will podcasts or individuals sharing stories be forced to acquire a license to share those stories and be charged a fee? I don't know. What about the upload filter? Will there be an upload filter that's implemented that is completely unable to determine fair use from non-fair use, which would ultimately limit any sort of content critique or review that includes portions of the original content for context? Or will the upload filter completely kill memes like everybody has been saying? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I like saying that. Let's jump to the next part, which is new products. And we only got one new product here other than the Apple event that I just talked about, and this is from Fforde. So Fforde posted a question or an announcement tweet saying, hey, guess what's going to be going live at this new event? And I replied with about 6 times in the same tweet saying, please let it be a Dynamic XLR USB microphone. Please let it be a Dynamic XLR USB microphone. And Fforde Microphones replied to me. And the only reason I'm sharing this is because that tweet is still public. Otherwise, I would have kept it secret and would have reserved my excitement here. But they said, look, no. But you might like a different announcement in a few weeks. I think I've said too much. So, we should be expecting a new dynamic microphone from Fforde within the next few weeks. I am hoping it will be a Dynamic XLR and USB microphone, but it may end up just being an updated version of the Fforde Podcaster, which desperately needs an update because somehow they really screwed that microphone up. They got the Procaster, which sounds pretty dang good, and then they got the Podcaster, which is the same form factor, but it's USB and it's white, and it sounds terrible in comparison to the Procaster. So maybe they will just take the Procaster mic, throw in a USB ADC, analog to digital converter, and you'll have XLR, you'll have USB, you'll have monitoring. How amazing would that be from Fforde? Fforde, I cannot wait. Expect to see something in a few weeks from Fforde. They, like I said, they're going balls to the wall with all the new products. That's it for the new products. Let's jump to what I have been testing. This doesn't really fall into here, but I had no idea where else to put this. This is going to be a discussion or my theories about removing long-form content to improve your video distribution. So this is something that John Prosser and Jason Lewis from Front Page Tech and Painfully Honest Tech have been doing, and they did it recently, and it really offered a huge improvement on their growth and their distribution on YouTube. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that Epos Vox, who is more of a resource channel, a search channel, recently did this. He privated a lot of videos, lost about 2 million views, I think it was, and he saw no change to his growth or his distribution or anything. Now, I thought about this and I came up with a theory about why it worked for Jason and John, but why it didn't work for Adam, aka Epos Vox. If your main traffic source is search, privating your long-form content likely won't change your growth because your actions are not going to change how many people are searching for your previous content. No change whatsoever. People are still searching the same amount for the Shure SM7B, in my instance. Privating all my long-form content, not going to change that. But how did it work for John and Jason? I think that's where we really see the discrepancy here. They were already blowing up. They were getting a lot of recommendation. YouTube said, hey, people really like watching this. Let's push their content more. But what would they be recommending if they're recommending all of Jason and John's video? Probably a few 2 or 3 hour long podcasts. When you are recommended a 2 or 3 hour long video, how frequently do you click on that? Probably not that much. So those videos that were 2 or 3 hours long were not getting clicked on as much, and YouTube was viewing that as poorly performing videos, which I suppose they were. So that was telling the YouTube algorithm, hey, people don't like these guys as much as we think. Let's limit the distribution of their videos and their content. So when they private those long form videos, that will go ahead and remove those from their recommended videos. So their click-through rate would increase because the only videos that are being recommended are their short-form content that people seem to like. Thereby, with that change, they are telling the YouTube algorithm that they have somehow become more successful and people like them more, and that YouTube should try them out with more new people. So that is my take on the entire thing. That has been a very interesting story unfolding. The whole, oh, long-form content is hurting your channel. I think, yes, if you are solely gaining your views on recommendations and browse features on YouTube, absolutely. If you are mainly focused on search, and that is where you get the majority of your views, I don't think it will have any impact at all. So that is my take on it. Just wanted to share that with you. Now let's jump to what you had to say. And the first comment comes from Gnarly Soundscapes. Let me go ahead and blow this up so I can actually read it. He says, the law of diminishing returns is definitely a thing. I can hear a big difference in quality between a $50 mic and a $150 mic. I can sometimes hear a small difference in quality between a $150 mic and a $400 mic. But after the $400 barrier, I can hear nothing but differences in character, not quality. Maybe it would matter on a hi-fi recording listened to on a $1,000 headphones, but on a platform like YouTube, radio, or TV, that extra $3,000 worth of clarity gets lost in compression and or the mediocre headphone speakers used by the average listener. So Gnarly, thank you very much for the feedback in the comment here. I agree with you 100%. I believe the reason that you have people using $3,000 or $10,000 microphones for music albums or film voiceovers is because they are preparing the audio to be listened to on a large variety of playback systems. You will have people listening to your album on the speakers of an iPhone. You could be using a garbage microphone and it's not going to make much of a difference. But somebody could be listening to your album on a $25,000 hi-fi system in their audio room, in their whatever. So you don't want them to have a bad experience saying, oh, well, this album sucks because they didn't take into account the fact that I would be listening to this and I have the equipment that would allow me to notice those minor differences. For film voiceover, they need to make sure it's going to sound amazing on movie theater playback systems, which are THX certified, whatever the heck that means anymore. I think there's actually a 20,000 hertz video or podcast on that, which was pretty interesting. But you need to have very high quality audio to get the best quality out of the theater playback. Now, with podcasts and YouTube videos, I agree. Those likely are not being listened to on super hi-fi systems. They're being listened to on phone speakers, on crappy in-ear monitors or in-ear headphones, or they're being listened to in a vehicle with so much background noise that it wouldn't make a difference what microphone you are using. So in that sense, absolutely. I think there is a threshold that when you go over it, you're not really getting any benefit, but I think it is the content that you're creating that will dictate that, not the theoretical, oh, well, I don't hear it over $500, so it doesn't matter. You need to think, oh, well, for movies, think of where that's going to be played back and what the benefit is. Think about the albums. Who is going to benefit from them using a $10,000 or $12,000 AKG C12? Who's going to benefit from that? People who have a very discerning ear and have paid $20,000 for a hi-fi system with a Macintosh power amp and all sorts of stuff like that. Like, what's his name? Singer of Black Flag, Henry Rollins. I think he has like $100,000 set of speakers. He's going to care about what microphone is used on a recording, or maybe not. He'll care more about the energy. But I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much for your feedback. I agree with you to some extent. More power to you if you want to spend $20,000 on a microphone setup. But hey, if you do decide to do that, go ahead and use my affiliate links. Wink! Next comment comes from Lyowin. He says, one thing I always tell people who use cheaper microphones, myself included, is use what you can afford and make it the best you can, even if this means you have to fake it sounding good. What I mean by this is use free tools available for certain programs. Personally, I use Reaper plugins for OBS to blank out background noise with my NW800 UM2 combo with a video showing the difference between camera audio versus microphone. Had I known about that plugin set, I would have been using it with my old Rock Band microphone. I might even do an update showing that it should work with any microphone. Another comment that I agree with 100%. I think starting out with a cheaper microphone is a great idea for almost everybody. And the reason I say that, it allows for a couple of things, going with a cheap microphone and a cheap audio setup to start out with. First, and most importantly, it allows you to start making content for cheap, and that allows you the opportunity to determine if you like the process and you want to continue making content. There's no reason to go out and spend $1,000 before you create anything and before you know if you enjoy doing it. Go ahead and spend $20, $30, $50 on a microphone setup. Find out if you enjoy it, and then once you have determined that you want to continue making that content, then consider upgrading to the higher quality stuff. Secondly, with cheap microphones, it forces you to get really good at processing your audio. You will likely have to do quite a bit more processing to a $20 microphone or a $5 microphone than you would on a $500 audio setup. So by finding out how to make a $5 microphone sound good, when you do upgrade, you'll be able to do significantly less processing on that $500 microphone, but you will have a much better understanding of how all the plugins, all the processing works and how it affects your audio. So you will be able to be much more precise with your processing if you use that time with a cheap microphone to your benefit and really analyze what you're doing. You could just throw a bunch of crap at the wall and say, hey, whatever, it's $5, sounds better than that. And lastly, it allows you to develop your ear. The thing I mean there is you may not initially hear any issue with the cheap microphones, but when you start listening closer to the cheap stuff, the negatives are typically more pronounced. And you'll start to pick up on that. You'll start to hear, oh, this boost in this frequency range right here is really jarring to listen to. So when you get to the higher end stuff, you'll have, again, a more discerning ear and be able to find what you like. You'll start to develop your tastes. I like what it does here, don't like what it does here. I like the off-axis coloration of this microphone, I hate it on this one. It allows you to become much more discerning with your ear because you need to start with very drastic changes or very drastic characteristics to develop your ear and develop the ability to find that frequency or that coloration or that bad quality of a microphone and determine what you like. I hope that made sense. But in summary, I agree. Use a cheap microphone to start, find out if you like it, go from there. Okay, let's jump to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. Okay, Reminder, everybody, if you got any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com. I will likely answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. Again, askbandrew@gmail.com. First email comes from Heather. She says, "Hey, Bandrew, how are you? I was wondering if you ever read any books by Jasper Fforde. Personally, I really enjoy them and think they are fantastic. Clever at creating new stories by twisting things like Jane Eyre, one of my favorite books, into the Eyre Affair. Lost in a Good Book is the second book in that series where the lead character is called Thursday Next. There are a few books in that series, and I'm pretty sure I've read them all. I have just seen on Audible that there's a new one called Early Riser, which I'm so excited about. What is on your audiobook playlist at the moment? What have you finished? And what are you listening to at the moment?" And then she sent a follow-up email, and she said, "I forgot the other author I wanted to ask you about, Matthew Reilly. He's got fast-paced, action-packed stories that I really enjoy, and I have a lot of his books in physical copies. Both Jasper Fforde and Matthew Reilly are fictional writers. I'm also enjoying a compilation by George R.R. Martin, Gardner Dozois, called Rogues. It's a bunch of stories about rogues by other authors like Gillian Flynn, author of Gone Girl. Last question, do you predominantly listen to nonfiction, or do you have some fictional audiobooks too? Thanks for sharing, Heather." Heather, great questions there, and anybody who's listening or watching and doesn't know who Heather is, she is the host of the Sunshine and Power Cuts podcast, which is sweet as. So go check that out, sunshineandpowercuts.com. So first part, I have not read any Jasper Fforde or Matthew Reilly books. I'll admit this. Bad to admit, but I will admit it. I really do struggle at reading actual books, which sucks, but it is true. At some point in my life, a switch just flipped, and it made me prefer content that allows me to multitask, which is why I love podcasts, which is why I love audiobooks. I can be doing multiple things while I'm still consuming that information. Now, when it comes to listening to fiction versus nonfiction, I do mainly listen to nonfiction because it's a cheap way, or I cheat a little bit, and nonfiction makes me feel like I am actually improving myself much easier than with nonfiction. With fiction, I have to sit there and contemplate what the stories are, pay really close attention to the character development, the relationships. With nonfiction, it's just, hey, this is the information. Remember it, you dope. It's really easy to feel like you're improving yourself with nonfiction. With fiction, much more difficult because you have to put a lot more brain power into that. And if I'm multitasking, I'm not able to do that. But as far as what's on my current playlist, I'm going to give you a bunch of them. Fingerprints of the Gods. That is a book about all this historical stuff that makes no sense. And they're saying, you know what? It was gods, it was aliens, that kind of stuff. It's a crazy person's book. Why Nations Fail is another one. It's a book about economics and why certain countries are rich, why certain countries are poor. It was recommended as one of the top economics books. The Books of Blood, a horror book by Clive Barker. That is a fiction book. Sapiens, which is, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this has heard of Sapiens. Very popular book about the history of mankind. What else do we got? Operation Paperclip. Ooh, this one's interesting. It's an account of Operation Paperclip done by Annie Jacobson, who is honestly one of the most exciting nonfiction readers that I've come across. She does a lot of the conspiracy stuff, but from more of a journalistic approach. And Operation Paperclip will be interesting to listen to. It's where America brought over Nazi scientists to work on projects like NASA, Wernher von Braun. And there's a bunch more. As far as what I have recently finished, Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's fine. That was a fine book. Some useful information in there. I just see how many people are now emulating Gary V, and it is maddening because I don't think people got out of that book what they should have. They got out, oh, I can now emulate Gary V. Don't emulate him. He's Gary V. Be you, you dopes. That's why I am a little bit sour on that book. But then I read The Outsider by Stephen King. Horror book, fiction book. I read it. I listened to it, I should say. The Hot Zone by Richard Preston, which is a book about Ebola, and I love Ebola. I shouldn't say that. I don't love Ebola. I find it fascinating. Childhood's End, that's another fiction book by Arthur C. Clarke. Really great, really fun. A little bit of a bummer, but a good book nonetheless. And lastly, Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is a nonfiction book about Skinwalker Ranch, which is in Utah, and all the investigations that go on there. What is it? Not Bob Loblaw. I want to call him that. Bob Bigelow. That's his name. He bought that ranch and just recently sold it. Did a bunch of investigations there. It was interesting. And there's actually a new documentary on Hunt for the Skinwalker, which I'm probably going to watch after I finish recording and editing this. So Heather, thank you very much for the email. Thank you very much for the questions. Sweet as, bro. Shot, bro. Okay. Next email comes from Crispy Teabag. Hey, Bandrew, it's Crispy Teabag here. I used to send questions in, and you featured me in episode 95 to 105 or so. Anyway, I'm back now. Just been busy with... Okay. Question 1. I have just started up a new podcast as the old one I abandoned and wanted to start afresh. The link is here. Could you leave me some feedback on the podcast, e.g., how it sounds, do I drag on, etc.? Question 2, what genre of movies is your favorite? Thanks all. Thank you for providing content. You're very welcome, Crispy. So welcome back. First question. I have not had a chance to listen to your podcast. I will. I'll leave some feedback. I'll let you know what I think. I will be hypercritical. Keep that in mind. I don't know why you abandoned your prior podcast. Why? You did a couple of episodes. Keep it going, man. There's no reason to abandon a podcast. Keep it going. You're now another statistic on pod fading. You don't want to do that. Stick with a podcast, man. Get to work. So I will let you know. Now, favorite genre of movies, that is very difficult. It seems to change quite frequently, where currently I am going on a horror film binge where I just watch nothing but horror films. I also go through other times where I watch nothing but comedies or documentaries or drama. My 2 personal favorite films are drama, Amadeus and There Will Be Blood. Huge bummers, but amazing acting, amazing stories, amazing character development. So in that sense, I could say drama, but I'm going to go ahead and say action. And the reason I say that is I want to ensure that Indiana Jones is included in there. I also think that that could encapsulate sci-fi films. I love sci-fi, and it will allow me to watch Predator. I love Predator and Total Recall. Those are incredible, incredible films that don't get the love they deserve. Those are incredible films. So all of that, I'm going to say action because I love all the action films. I think that encapsulates Indiana Jones, and I think it could tie in Star Wars. I was about to say Star Trek. I don't think Star Trek would fall into that category, but action. So thank you very much, Crispy. I'll let you know what I think of the podcast. I will be hypercritical. And the next and last email comes from the King Motivation. Hello, you are really so helpful, and now I need a really help from you. I got email from YouTube, and my channel is not approved, and now I have to wait 30 days for reapply again for YouTube partner for monetization, and now I want to start from zero again. Please, can you give me some advice? I'm using a short video clips from bodybuilders, and I make motivational videos. Please give me some advice now how to start again and join on YouTube partner program. Please help me. King Motivation. First piece of advice I will give you, please use punctuation. That is an entire run-on sentence. Please, for the love of God, use punctuation. Please. Anybody sending in an email, use proper punctuation. Don't have a paragraph-long run-on sentence. I'm being critical, though. Let me tell you what you need to do to get partner program. 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time within the last 12 months. So if you submitted for approval for the YouTube partner program, but you did not get approved, either you did not meet those requirements, which I don't think would be the case because you have to meet those requirements to submit for approval, or there's something on your channel that doesn't meet YouTube's ad guidelines. I make no presumptions. I make no statements that I am a YouTube ad guru. I have not read through all of YouTube advertising guidelines. I have not analyzed other people's channels who have been demonetized. All I can speak to is what has worked for me. I don't swear. I don't use any copyrighted music. All I do is talk about the microphone. I show the spec sheet and I talk about news stories. And if I talk about a news story, I will include a link the majority of the time, unless it's something breaking like that road story I just brought you, which was from me. So that's how I approach it. I don't know what you could be doing. I watched one of your videos. It had some music in the background. Don't know if that's public domain. Don't know if that's fair use, if it's Creative Commons. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like there's something on your channel that does not meet YouTube's ad guidelines. So I would direct you to go ahead and read YouTube's ad guidelines to determine what you are doing wrong. You will have to get very nitty-gritty about that. You'll have to read very in-depth. Or you could just start a new channel. It is very difficult to grow a new channel. I am finding that with this podcast channel. I guess I've cheated a little bit because I've been really leveraging the Podcastage channel by sharing related videos on this channel to the Podcastage community, but still very, very difficult. I'm finding that with the Creator Case Study YouTube channel. Very difficult. If you do meet those requirements and you weren't approved, like I said, probably something wrong with your content guidelines and how you're doing that. I don't know what else to tell you. Unfortunately, I don't know if you've ever received a demonetized video. Nothing, my dude. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Sorry I couldn't be more help. Thank you for sending in your email, though. Thank you, everybody, for sending in your emails, leaving your feedback in the comments. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm done for today. Done for today. I appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you listening. If you got anything out of it, go ahead and share it with a friend or subscribe on a podcatcher or on YouTube. You can do it in any of those places. Want more information about the podcast? BandrewSays.com. Want to find out more about what I am working on? BandrewScott.com. Follow me on Twitter at BandrewSays. That is about 1,000 calls to action. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.